Chakshurmilitam jena tasmai Shri Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Stapitam Nirvutare Swayam Rupakamayam Naranti Swavantikam Namam Vishnavada Krishavasa Vuttari Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pajayini Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastata Vishata Vachakalpa Jivasha Kripa Sindhuevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So first of all, let me express my joy that I can spend this evening in your company here and share a few thoughts and realizations. Maybe I should add a few little words to that little introduction of my humble self. That for the last 25 years I have been quite involved in preaching in Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, East Bengal, very special place actually. There's a lot of holy places. Most of Mahaprabhu's associates come from that part of Bengal, like Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, even Advaita Acharya, Srivas Thakur, Punrik Vidyanidhi, Mukundadatta, Vasudev Datta, even Madhavendra Puri, so many great personalities in our Vaishnava line, now Chandas Thakur, of course, they're all from East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. And somehow our Vaishnava culture has really been preserved there, more than anywhere else in the world. So when I'm traveling there, I feel like I'm entering Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's like a different planet there, even compared to India. India is already very westernized. I've been coming to India for the last 36 years or something every day. So I have observed how India has changed. Like Vrindavan 35 years ago was something completely different than it is today. Yes, I'm grateful that I had that experience from 35 years ago. So in any case, over the years of spending time there and preaching there, I have learned a lot of things there about our Vaishnava culture. How actually our Vaishnava culture is spontaneously meant to be lived, naturally. So, and that inspired me to establish a little institute for spiritual culture. I bought a little pamphlet. Can you get rid of this? Yes. I bought a little pamphlet along, so I've established an institute for spiritual culture because I realized we need some more training and education in how to practically live what Prabhupada has given us. So to read Prabhupada's books is a good beginning, but it's only a beginning. Then the real challenge comes, how do we live it? How do we apply it in our daily life? And there we need a little bit of help. So, and in this Institute for Spiritual Culture, I've put quite a few courses together. I brought a course schedule with me for January in Mayapur, just in case somebody feels inspired to spend a few weeks in Mayapur and do some courses. But now, because not everybody can come to Mayapur and do these courses, that's why I'm putting these courses now in book form. So each book you see here is a 15-hour course. So you get quite a good package of education here. They're all very practical and relevant for our daily practice of devotional life. So like Prabhupada's books, they are the law books for civilized humanity for the next 10,000 years, Prabhupada said. But often the law books are a little complex, and we need some complementary literature to help us understand how to live according to the law. And that's exactly what I'm trying to give. So the books are all based on Prabhupada, and they illustrate in a more practical way. They make Prabhupada's teachings practically accessible to us. Because unless we live this amazing knowledge and wisdom what Prabhupada has given us, unless we live it in our daily life, it will not transform our heart. We actually have to live it. So just to read it and learn it by heart and to quote it is a good beginning, but it's only the beginning. Then we have to live it. And that's the real challenge. It's not so easy in these modern days. You know? Yeah, so just for you to understand where I'm coming from. So after our little talk, I will say a few words about each book, just to give you some idea what they're all about. Some already have some books. We had a program for the ladies. What was it, day before yesterday? Yes. Yeah, so there's some people got already some books. Okay, so today we have the topic of the power of consciousness, right? That's the topic for tonight. Yes. Consciousness. What is consciousness? How does our surroundings affect our consciousness? How does our consciousness affect others? And where does consciousness come from? What is it? You know, because we use this term consciousness quite regularly. After all, we are the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So yeah, what is it? You know? And actually Prabhupada was saying, before becoming Krishna conscious, we have to first become conscious. Because so often we are rather unconscious. You know? So let us tonight try to become conscious of consciousness. So in Bhagavad Gita, which verse is it? 13:34. Actually, do we have an English Bhagavad Gita? If you have one, you can give me, and we quickly read the verse, because Krishna gives a nice analogy. He says, just like the sun illuminates the whole universe by sunshine, in the same way, the soul emanates consciousness, and that illuminates the whole body. So it's a nice analogy, which is quite easy to relate to us, for us. But yeah, let me read. I'll skip the Sanskrit just to save time. So this is 13:34. Krishna says, O son of Bharata, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So just like the sunshine is flooding the whole universe, in the same way consciousness coming from the soul, from the living entity, which is the soul, so it emanates from the soul, flooding the whole body by consciousness. And Prabhupada's purport, there are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place, but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body, and as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. So let's try and be intelligent here tonight. So, as Prabhupada nicely describes, consciousness is the proof of the presence of the soul. So consciousness is not only there in the human form of life. As soon as a soul is present in any species of life, there's consciousness, right? So in animals, plants, trees, as soon as there's growth there, there's also consciousness there. And in some species of life, the consciousness is more dull and covered, and in some species of life it is more alert. And in the human form of life, the consciousness can be really elevated. Yeah. But consciousness is there as soon as there is life. And as Prabhupada says, when the soul is moving on, then the body is dead, so then no more consciousness. Right? Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combination of matter. No, it's the life force coming from the soul. It is the symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with a supreme consciousness, is not supreme, because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. So thank God we are only conscious of one body and not all bodies. That would be quite bewildering. We were conscious of all bodies. So as Prabhupada says, yes, originally the soul is actually a part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, so it has the same qualities in minute quantity. So therefore also the consciousness, that energy emanating from the soul, is actually divine. It is spiritual, and divine, pure, godly, originally. But then by being here in this material world, we get affected by the threefold modes of material nature, and therefore the consciousness gets covered, right? So we can say there's a broad spectrum of consciousness. On one side there's this divine, godly, pure consciousness, and then on the other side there is this consciousness full of lust, greed, anger, false ego, envy, that kind of consciousness. And the process of Krishna consciousness is meant to retransform our consciousness back to this original divine, sublime consciousness. You know, it's like a whole rehabilitation process. I actually come from a medical background. I used to work in rehabilitation. So now I'm not doing rehabilitation for the body, but for the soul. The soul really needs some rehabilitation. You know, that we get rid of this lust, anger, greed, envy, false ego consciousness, and we transform our consciousness back to its original, pure, divine, godly state. That's what we're trying to do here, actually. So yeah, and consciousness floods the whole body and keeps every cell alive. Yeah. I remember in my medical work, anybody who comes from medical background knows, like when you, for example, you cut off your fingertip, you have only a very short time where you can stitch it back on. You know, if it's separated from the body for longer than 15 minutes or something, then cells are dead, can't stitch it back on. So if the cells are disconnected from the powerhouse of consciousness for more than a few minutes, then they die. And when you quick enough and stitch it back on, then you can save the cells. Yeah, so, and consciousness, of course, is not only flooding the whole body, but it is emanating from every pore of the skin. Consciousness emanates as a very powerful energy. So if we are a little perceptive, we can feel this. This is what we usually call the aura. Right? Yes. We don't really have... Oh yeah, here. We have Mahaprabhu having this effulgence, the aura, his divine consciousness emanating from the head. It mainly emanates from the head, actually. So this is not just some artistic tool or something that we paint this halo. Even in Christianity, they also do that, you know, or the Christian saintly personalities, they have this halo. So this is factual, you know. So if a person is in very elevated consciousness, some effulgence emanates mainly from the head, but ultimately from the whole body. There's a nice little story when Prabhupada was walking through one of the cities in America on the way to the Rath Yatra parade, and a group of disciples were accompanying him, and the devotees overheard a conversation between two policemen. And one was saying to the other, "Look at this man, he is glowing." And these policemen had no idea who Prabhupada was, you know, no clue. But they could see that Prabhupada was shining, he was effulgent. Yes, they could perceive that. Yeah. So that's how factual it is. Yes. And of course, not only divine and sublime consciousness emanates, but also the contaminated lust, anger, greed, envy, false ego consciousness also emanates. Yes. And if we are a little bit perceptive, we can feel some negative energy coming from that person. Yes. Or we may have that experience when we had some argument with somebody, some tension, and we are in a smaller room with this person, even though nobody says anything, but you can feel some tension in the air, you know, and yeah, you can feel this person is upset with me, you know. And actually the other day one devotee was saying to me that he has the feeling that computers are so sensitive that they feel the consciousness when you're impatient, you know, then it disturbs their function. I don't know if it's true, but you never know, maybe it is, you know, it is. Because it is quite a powerful energy, and very finely tuned, sensitive instruments can be, perceptive to these things and that not function so well or something, you know. So it's quite an interesting topic. And of course, understanding how consciousness floods the whole body, it makes it very clear that, for example, a pregnant mother, the child gets completely the consciousness of the mother, completely, because her consciousness floods the whole body. So the child gets that full on, you know? So that's why being a mother is a high responsibility. It's very important service, because child raising does not only start when the child is born, it's already there during pregnancy. Child feels every emotion, hears everything, and gets the mother's consciousness. Even the mother's milk is so charged with her consciousness, you know. So that's why mothers have to be in good consciousness. And even child raising even starts before conception, because according to our consciousness at the time of conception, that's how we attract a certain soul to take birth in our family. It's a whole science. You know, so it's not a coincidence who takes birth in which family. So depending on the consciousness of the parents at that time, if they are in a very godly, Krishna conscious frame of mind, very prayerful, begging for the Lord to send us a nice child, so then a more elevated person takes birth in our family. But if a child is just appearing due to lust of the parents, they don't have a desire to have a child, they try to avoid to have a child, but oops, somehow my wife is pregnant. So then, you know, a soul of lower level of consciousness takes birth. So this is all very interesting. You know, these things we should teach our devotees actually. So consciousness, very important. And of course, as we know, depending on the consciousness at the moment of death, that determines our next destination. So again, the consciousness is so important. It's all about consciousness. Trying to bring our consciousness back to its original divine, sublime, godly state. That's the healthy state, actually. Please, everybody switch off your phones. We should never even enter this room with the phone on. That's such a distraction. Let me share an interesting little story, not from the Shastra, but from modern life in ISKCON. I know one family in Australia where the husband had a kidney failure, and his wife gave him one of her kidneys. So as we know, we can do that. And she is the only one in the family who really likes to eat chocolate. Nobody else in the family eats chocolate, but she really likes. and she has a little chocolate stash there in the cupboard where she keeps her chocolate. So, and when they came back from the surgery, she felt like having some chocolate, and she went to her cupboard, but all the chocolate was gone. So she asked her husband, "Do you have a clue where the chocolate went?" And he was a little embarrassed and saying, "Well, something overcame me, and all of a sudden I had this urge, this cravings to eat chocolate, so I went to your cupboard and stole it and ate it." So then they were thinking maybe this is connected with this kidney transplantation. So next time they went to the checkup, they told the doctor that story and asked him. And he said, "Oh yeah, we know this. Every time we transplant an organ, the person receiving the organ for some time has the same taste and cravings as the person giving it." And then he said, "It seems like organs can remember things," which is of course nonsense. Organs cannot remember anything. But this doctor did not know the power of consciousness, you know. So her kidneys were flooded with chocolate consciousness, right? And that chocolate consciousness emanated from that kidney which was in her husband's body. And that's why he had this craving for chocolate. But it only lasted for about 10 days. Then his new kidney was flooded with his consciousness, which was free of chocolate consciousness. So, and then that craving was gone. So that's a medical proof how consciousness works. Our consciousness is in every cell of the body, emanating from the cells and having its effect. You know? And of course also every activity we do is also executed through consciousness, right? So that's why Prabhupada, whatever he did was so fascinatingly beautiful. The way he was laughing, the way he was dancing, the way he was talking, smiling, popping a sweet in his mouth. Everything Prabhupada did was just so attractive and beautiful. Why? Because it was executed with this divine consciousness. Yeah. But then a person full of lust, anger, greed, envy, false ego, whatever he or she does, will not be so amazingly beautiful. And if we are a little perceptive, we can feel, you know, this negativity coming the way he or she dances and talks and laughs and trying to bring attention to themselves. And so that's not so divine, right? Yeah. So every movement is executed through consciousness, you know? And also, as we know, whatever our hands create, the consciousness enters what we create. We probably have all heard the statement that the consciousness of the cook enters the food he cooks, right? Yes. So that's factual. You know, if somebody cooks with love and devotion for the Lord in divine consciousness, so then that energy enters the food. It stays in the food. And everybody who eats it will be affected by it. You know, that's the power of prasadam, our secret weapon. That's why we usually try and make arrangements that only those cook who are in good consciousness. So at least they should be seriously practicing, maybe initiated, and or in bigger temples, only the Brahmin initiated devotees, they cook. So we try our very best to arrange that the cooking is done by devotees in good consciousness, because it does enter the food. Yes. So, and of course, the other way around, when a person in lust, greed, anger, envy, false ego mood, when that person cooks, especially lust, greed, money, so if that, or anger, if the cook is in that mood, well, then that energy enters the food and it will affect us. Yeah. So that's why when we are a little serious in Krishna consciousness, we want to be a little careful what we eat. That just vegetarian, not good enough. The question is, who cooked it? Yes. So that's why those who are more seriously practicing Krishna consciousness, we're not so keen to go to the bakery and get some things made by non-devotees, all kinds of packaged foods from the supermarket, cookies and chips and this and that, because we don't know who cooked it, so this is, seriously, we should consider that. Of course, if once while we travel or something, we make some little exception, okay. But if it is a regular thing, it will affect us. Our material desires will increase, because that's what we capture from that person who cooked it. So it's good to know these things, And of course, the consciousness does not only enter the food we cook, it enters anything we create with our hands. That's why handcrafted things always have a nice energy. I mean, here in Kerala you probably don't get such cold season, but if our mother is knitting a scarf or a hat for us for the winter season, do you wear scarves and hats here? No need. But if you go to Vrindavan now, you will need it. Even Mayapur gets a little cold in January. So, if we use a hat or a scarf which is knitted with love and devotion by our mother, it has a nice energy, a very different energy than something from the factory. Or handcrafted things have a good energy, because that consciousness enters. I know one devotee in Germany, over several years he built his house more or less by hand, out of wood. Of course he had a few tools. But he put so much effort in it, and wood is also a nice material. So when you enter his house, it has an amazing energy. You can feel a different vibe there than just having some concrete block there. Yes. These things are factual. See, these days, with modern technology, we are often not so perceptive anymore towards these subtleties. We're becoming a little dull. But there's all kinds of subtle things happening which are quite interesting. And I mean, that's also why we really keep some piece of cloth worn by Prabhupada. Oh, this is very special. Not only, Prabhupada used it, but now his energy is still lingering in there. Like when we go to Vrindavan, Prabhupada's house. There's a whole museum, so many nice things which Prabhupada used, and. So yeah, especially cloth, especially things which can absorb that energy, it is lingering still there. So that's why we worship them, and that's why it's very dear to us. That's all. Because of that energy of consciousness still being there. Yes. And of course, as I mentioned, not only human beings have consciousness, all forms of life, even trees, vegetables, they have consciousness. Yes. I remember in Sweden and Scandinavia we have a farm project. There's one family, they grow quite professionally, they grow organic vegetables. And I once talked to him about these things, and he was saying, yes, I'm convinced that the vegetables have consciousness. And he was sharing his neighbor has better soil. He also grows carrots, but that devotee said, even though he has better soil, my carrots taste better. Because I talk to my carrots. I chant Hare Krishna to them. I grow them with love and devotion, and they can feel this. And then they're more happy. And then they're more tasty. Yeah. And I believe it. Like in Germany, in the supermarkets, you can also buy organic carrots, but they're completely tasteless. Because these days, many vegetables, it's almost like a factory. They're grown with machines. There's no more human beings there. There's just machines going, watering them, picking them, pulling out the weeds. It's all done by machines. So the poor carrots, they are missing the loving exchange here. So by being taken care of by machines, they're not so happy. So when you buy things, even in Germany, grown from an old granny in her backyard, they taste so much differently. Even though they're also organic in the supermarket, you pay extra, you get the organic carrots, but they have no taste. No taste. So yeah, it is a matter of consciousness. That if we put our love and devotion and we communicate with these entities, they can feel this. I also know one devotee, he's a gardener. And I talked to him about this topic. And he was once sharing when he was in apprenticeship, when he was learning in some big gardening company there. His boss asked him to water all different little pots there on some shelf. Was many pots. So, and then after he had done that, his boss asked him, did you water these 3 there at the end? And then he said, oh, I forgot. And then he asked him, how did you know? And he said, well, they communicate with me. So yes, as a gardener, if you are really in tune with what you're growing there, then the plants can let you know, oh, I'm thirsty, he forgot to water me. So, and somehow, he could pick up on it, and he asked exactly those 3 pots which he had forgotten to water. And he hadn't felt all their dry. No, he somehow knew. They were letting him know. So yeah, there's all kinds of subtle communication there, but one has to be, of course, in tune. One has to really be in tune with the plants and so on. Yeah, so, and trees are also very, very special living entities, actually. Actually, Prabhupada says, those human beings who want to show off their naked body, they take birth in trees. They can stand there naked for many, many lives, many years. But now, trees are very unique and beneficial entities. They don't only transform carbon dioxide and oxygen, which is a useful thing, but they also give fruits and flowers, they give shade, they give some healing energy. Yeah, they take up negative energy, they give healing energy. A couple of times I did a Panchakarma treatment in South India, and the Ayurvedic doctor also told me I should go and hug trees. He had a whole big garden there, park, with all the medicinal trees, special trees, and they give off some healing energy, so there's something to it. And also trees communicate amongst each other. The stronger trees help the weaker trees. There's a whole communication thing happening there. So they're not just some dull creatures there. But now there's some communication happening. And, well, when I was a teenager, which is quite a while ago, 50 plus years, I heard a report on the radio about the consciousness of trees. And this impressed me so much that I still remember it. And they were demonstrating that we can transform the vibrations of consciousness into sound vibration. Don't ask me how, but somehow technically this is possible. So, and then they showed what a tree sounds like, which is in a peaceful state of mind. Just some buzzing noise. Peaceful tree, sounds like that. But then they demonstrated what a tree sounds like, which is an anxiety. And that sounded differently, going up and down, oh my God. And then they shared why this tree is in anxiety. And they said that this tree, some man approached this tree who cut off some branches of that tree 2 or 3 years before. And that tree recognized that man. Oh no, not this guy is coming. Let's see what he's going to do like this time to me, probably cutting off some branches. It actually hurts them. They're actually bleeding. The sap dripping out, this is like blood, actually. Yeah. So, and he recognized that person and he was in anxiety. I thought that was quite amazing how trees can recognize a person. So now we may ask, but the tree doesn't have eyes, how can he recognize a person there? No, not with the eyes, but he can feel, the tree can feel the energy of that person. Yes. And in regards to trees, Prabhupada was very strongly preaching about this, that we should not just cut down trees whimsically, just because they're in our way, and we want to get rid of them. It's actually killing, Yeah. Any of you has been to Juhu Temple? Few people. Maybe you remember this tree in front of Juhu Temple, which is almost like in the middle of the road. You remember this tree? And when you see it, you think, huh? What's this tree doing here, right? That's your first thought. You know the tree too? Because, oh, there's a road, and on one lane, pretty much in the middle of one lane, is a big tree. It's really in the way, completely. And it really strikes you, if you're a little observant, you see, huh? What's this tree doing here? You know the story behind it? Have you heard the story behind this tree? Yeah, you heard the story? GYC tells the story in one of his Vyasa Puja homages to Prabhupada. He shares that when Prabhupada got finally that property after long battle, of Juhu temple, he was really instructing the devotees, don't you cut down this tree. He was very strong on it. So and then when Prabhupada left Juhu, and a little later he came back, when the devotees met him at the airport, his first question was, is that tree still there? Or did you cut it off? Prabhupada knew exactly the Western mentality, let's get rid of this tree, it's in the way. So he was so concerned, it was his first question, is this tree still there? So that's why the tree is still there, because Prabhupada insisted, And GYC Maharaj makes this point, how compassionate Prabhupada was even to a tree. What to speak of his disciples or the fallen conditioned souls in general, but even a tree, he was so concerned. So it's interesting to hear these stories behind this tree sitting in an awkward place. But up to today, the devotees really kept their word and did not cut down this tree. So now a last thing I want to point out, which is pretty interesting, that consciousness travels on sound vibration. That is really an amazing arrangement of the Lord, that the voice is very closely connected to our emotions, right? We can't hide our emotions. It comes out through our mouth. When we are angry or upset or whatever, we can't hide it. It comes out on the sound coming from our mouth. So, and that means, kirtan is a very transcendental affair actually, because the consciousness of the kirtan leader travels on the sound coming out of his mouth and affecting each and every person's heart who hears it. Not only kirtan, even talk. That's what sadhu sangha is all about. Right? That when we hear from a person or we join that person's kirtans, if that person is in an elevated consciousness, then that consciousness travels on the sound vibration and affects our heart. There's a very, very hidden and powerful heart-to-heart transfer going on, from heart to heart, transfer of consciousness through the sound. So kirtan is not just some nice music, it's a whole transcendental affair. And it's very important that those who sing, that they're really connecting to the Lord, calling out. It's all about connecting with the Lord. Mindfully turning to Krishna, oh, please let me serve you, longing for the relationship. That's how we are meant to chanting kirtan. Not just nice music. That doesn't have any spiritual power. But it's all about consciousness. And of course also when a person is in a showing off mood, kirtan can be the opportunity to show off. So then that consciousness travels on the sound vibration and we capture that mood, the showing off mood, which is not really what we want. So kirtan, we have to join in good consciousness, simply wanting to serve, not to show off, but simply to serve the holy name. Even the instrument players, kartal, mridanga, it's all executed through consciousness. So if a person wants to be noticed, showing off, listen, look to my mridanga playing, oh, I'm so expert. So then that consciousness comes out through his fingertips and travels on the sound coming from the mridanga. And if we are a little perceptive, we can feel this when the person is in a showing off mood, you know? Then usually the instruments are always played and they're touched too loud because he wants to be noticed, so it's always a bit too loud. And yeah, if we're a little perceptive, it actually disturbs and contaminates the kirtan experience, you know. So. And understanding that makes it also very clear that we are a little choosy what kind of sound vibration we want to invite into our life. So that's why cinema music, Bollywood music, if we are a little serious in Krishna consciousness, we don't really want to invite that sound into our life because we capture the consciousness of these personalities singing it. Yes, of course. And they just want to show off and be famous, last green, and you know, probably don't follow any, regulative principles. They perform all kinds of sinful activities. So that consciousness comes out through their mouth. So that's why we have to be very careful what kind of sound vibration we invite into our life. Yes, it's sound vibration, very powerful. Actually, there has been experiment made that even pot plants, plants that people keep on their windowsill in their house, they grow better with classical music. They don't like rock and roll. Yeah, it's proven. But classical music, they like. They grow better. But this rock and roll and techno and all this crazy stuff, pot plants don't like it. So, well, that's also why we chant in front of Dāsī Devī, because she's a pure devotee. There's some divine consciousness emanating from her, and if we chant in front of her, she also likes it. We can have a connection with such a personality and a plant for body, Yeah, there's a personality inside, yes, and we can actually connect with that personality. Yeah, so sound vibration, big topic, so kirtan should be joined in a mood of not wanting to bring attention to ourselves but to Krishna, and the mood of helplessly crying out to the Lord. That's how we should sing in consciousness, and it's not a musical performance where we just show off how great our voice is and how nice we can sing and play and all that. Yeah, so good to know that, because in the name of Krishna consciousness we can really miss the target, that we use kirtan just to show off and bring attention to ourselves, feed our false egos, but that is not what it's meant to be, Yes. Alright, so let me see if we have some questions, since it is a practical topic. Are there any questions? Yes?
When we talk about the subtle things, I have a feeling that I am not able to capture the subtle feelings. If only I know I could have done better or behaved in a better way, but how I can capture the subtle feelings, or in the sense the devotees feeling. Most of the time I just think what I think, and I may not even know the others feeling. So hearing about this lecture, I think I should know their other feeling, but how will I get it?
Well, hearing is always the first step, That's why I like to talk about all kinds of subtle things. Like this morning at the temple we were talking about envy, how envy manifests towards seniors equals juniors. It's so subtle, we easily miss it completely, we don't even identify it, The contaminated intelligence has all the excuses and justifications why we are right and everybody else is wrong. And so hearing is always the first step. If we hear about these topics, that makes us more aware, more conscious, more mindful. And then also it is a matter of purification. As we become more purified, we become more perceptive towards these subtleties. But while we are more covered, especially by the mode of ignorance, then we are rather unconscious. We don't even, we only see ourselves and what we need and want, and we don't even consider what other people need and want. And as we become purified and more selfless, we can expand our consciousness. We can say it's similar like a mother. A mother expands her consciousness and she knows what the children need, and this one is sick and this one needs attention, and so she is intuitively connected with the children, because that's what she has to be a good mother. Women have good intuitive intelligence, whereas men have no clue why a baby cries and all that, because they don't need this so much for their role they're meant to play. But a mother has to have that intuition, And in a similar way, as we become a little more purified, as we really have a burning desire to help other devotees and other people in their spiritual development, as we have that mood, where is somebody who I can give something to in some way, So then we can also expand our consciousness more, and we are, more perceptive how we can encourage others and uplift them and so on. So it is a matter of getting out of tamaguna, basically. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the soul's consciousness originally is divine and pure. Like we say, the soul has the same qualities like Krishna, just in small quantity. So the consciousness is also in quality same like the Supreme Consciousness, but in small quantity. But it's just covered over, so by following the process properly. But just by hearing, we can be more mindful, because ultimately the secret of success in bhakti is to serve the devotees. Because the devotees are so dear to Krishna. We may do so many fancy arrangements for the Lord, yajnas and this and that, but the Lord says, okay, that's very nice, but what about my devotees? Who cares for them? So devotees conquer Krishna's heart. The devotees are more dear to Krishna than anything else in this world. So if we actually serve and please the devotees, that attracts Krishna's merciful glance upon us. So as we really become more and more selfless, simply ready to sacrifice ourselves to serve others, depending on our capacity, how much we can expand and extend ourselves and reach out, So then we develop that mood, But hearing is always a good start. Yes.
Thank you, Mātāji. Just heard about the consciousness, some points. I have just two queries. One is that you talk about the sound vibrations. So when we go with some conversation,
when we go with
some conversations,
conversations. Sorry.
Conversations. So if we want to avoid that fight or anything, but the other person could blame or some, so somehow we triggered that and we went into the some. So
we went to
the same
we
scenario.
get triggered and
So that our consciousness, there is a breaking point there. That is the one. Then second question is
maybe one after another. Yes. We can maybe broaden that question and say, well, how not to get so affected by other people's consciousness, especially when we are at work in some office associating with non-devotees, or even in family, and there's somebody who's all angry and agitated and basically the principle is that the more we have good sadhana, that gives us some spiritual strength. Like Prabhupada used to say, inject the blood with KC drug. KC, Krishna conscious, and the KC drug is Shravanam Kirtanam. Chanting good rounds, hearing, reading something, so especially when we start the day with that, then we have some little immunity there, And those of you, do you do the Prabhupada marathon here? People go out on books. So anybody who's been out in the street on books, they have that experience. Usually when we ask a good book distributor, what's your secret? Usually the answer, where's my beat there? The answer usually is, it's all in the bead bag. That's the answer, it's all in the bead bag. So if we chant good rounds in the mornings, really prayerful, begging Krishna, please let me be an instrument in your mission. I want to give these books to the foreign conditioned souls, please. let me serve as your instrument. Then Krishna uses us as his instrument, and also we don't get so affected by all these things that come towards us there on the street. We just cruise over them. Even if people reject us or say some bad words to us, we don't get so affected by it. But if our chanting is not good, then immediately we get thrown back and forwards there, and it's very difficult to survive out there on the street. So book distribution is a good service to realize how much it is dependent on our sadhana. Sadhana is the source of our spiritual strength. And then we don't get so affected. What was the second question?
It's related to that only, that when we go with some dissimilarities will be there. Suppose I have some dish, or when we go to the family, suppose I take the example of family. I like to go to a temple, or she want to go to party. So that's also another. So it's various examples are there. She likes to go to marriage. I don't want to if it's not needed. So there also, because I can control myself, but I cannot.
Yeah. One of the books there is a handbook for matchmaking. So ideally, all these things should be discussed before, if we have similar moods and tastes and goals and standards and. But I assume you are married already?
Yes.
Yeah. So then the questions, it's a bit too late. Well, then we simply have to tolerate, we have to be flexible, we have to make some compromise. All right, you come with me to the temple, I go with you to the marriage. So we have to cooperate and tolerate and work together. Not allow these things to become like a whole big conflicting or something. Yeah, family life. Good opportunity to become tolerant. Without tolerance, you cannot survive. And also any family issue can be solved if people accept guidance. If they're willing to accept guidance and work on themselves, rather than blaming the other person. That's usually what happens in married life. He blames her, she blames him, and it's my wife, it's my husband. But if we ask ourselves, what am I doing wrong that my spouse is acting like this? How can I improve my behavior? Because the other people, they act like a mirror to ourselves. They reflect our behavior. But there's different tastes and interests and priorities. So we simply have to see how we can juggle things. Because we don't want to create some dramas there and be stubborn and uncooperative and so on. So best you make a deal, that she sometimes comes with you and you sometimes please her and take part in some social gatherings, even though you may not feel like that. Also, men and women have very different natures, A woman likes to go out and be social and this and that, and she feels more secure if her husband accompanies her and so on, rather than going alone to these functions. So, and it's part of the husband to give her emotional support by sometimes taking her here and there and this and that. But then she also should follow his mood a little and also sometimes come to the temple or take some interest in what he does. Yes. And if she doesn't, then somebody maybe should guide her a little bit. All right, anything else? One question, last question.
Intuitions and consciousness how is connected?
Intuitions and consciousness. Well, intuition, there's different parts of intelligence, intuitive intelligence, rational intelligence. So as I mentioned, we women have a more intuitive intelligence because that's what we need to play the role of motherhood. The men have more rational intelligence because that's what they need to protect and provide. So we have different qualities built into our gross and solid bodies so we can play the roles we are meant to play. I wouldn't really say that intuition is directly connected with consciousness because even animals also have intuition. The cats, the dogs, they know how intuitively how to take care of their babies there and so it's not necessarily connected with consciousness. But simply in the sense that the more elevated our consciousness gets, the more we can expand also our consciousness and to others. That we don't only see ourselves, what we need and we want and what's good for us, but that we are more mindful of others around us. Prabhupada was an excellent example. He could connect with everybody when he was speaking. People had the feeling Prabhupada is directly speaking to me. He's directly looking through me. He knows where I'm at. And sometimes Prabhupada just could pick up on different things that people were thinking or their difficulties. So Prabhupada was really in tune with people. Yes. So almost like it says in the purport, the Lord is conscious of every living entity, but we are only conscious of ourselves. But Prabhupada, he could be conscious of so many living entities, maybe not as much as Krishna, obviously, but the more sublime the consciousness is, the more we can connect and extend ourselves to others around us. Prabhupada was a good example of that. Let me use, can you give me the books here? Let me use these last few minutes now to, all of them, to say a few words, thank you, a few words about each book. Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. This book is actually all about women. We women have a very powerful Shakti. And Bhagavatam says we should be the power of inspiration to the men. And we should not compete with them. But now because of man-woman equality, the women easily compete with the men. And the men usually don't really like that so much. Yes. So very interesting to discover how the male nature and female nature, they perfectly complement each other. And in fact, when you read this book, you will realize how this man-woman equality puts the whole human society upside down. Prabhupada knew it all, he said it all, but we are so conditioned by this modern propaganda of equality, that actually the equality is on the level of the soul, but not on the level of the body. Whenever Prabhupada was asked about man-woman equality, his standard answer was, women give birth to children, men cannot. How can they be equal? That was Prabhupada's answer. Hard to refute. So yeah, it's quite mind-blowing. Very useful also for married life. This book has saved quite a few marriages. I have a few big success stories where people just wanted to file the divorce, then somebody gave them the book, they read it, and then she thought, okay, let me try again, and now they're still happily married. You know, so people write to me because every book has my email address, and sometimes people write to me. So yeah, I mean, every woman should read this book. Very useful also for young girls, teenage girls. It's all about women, but for men it's also super interesting. I'm touching upon all the hot issues in regards to women. Are women less intelligent, women being Diksha Guru, women giving class, women leading kirtan, and it's all in the book, you know. Quite mind-blowing and eye-opening. Yeah. Then we have sheltering relationships. This is all about the importance of having a counselor. But just having Diksha, Shiksha Guru, not enough. We need this well-wishing friend, a counselor who guides us, who helps us to balance our life, who we want to be corrected by. If we don't have that, very easily we stay in our comfort zone and then we become stagnant. We don't move forward. We can come here for 30 years every Sunday, Saturday, you know, but if there's not somebody who actually guides us how to go forward, what's the next step, then very easily nothing really happens in our life. You know? And there's also the topic of envy in there, how envy manifests through its equals genius. And the culture of correcting others, culture of respect, so many interesting, practical, useful things. Then we have the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. Actually, this chapter of consciousness is the first chapter in this book. That's how it starts. What is consciousness? And then so many other things come. How to discover the false ego, how it gets in our way, and different ways how to subdue it and dissolve it, different rules of Vaishnava etiquette, all so practical and helpful for our life. Like even when we get offended, when we can't forgive, what is it? False ego, crying for justice, hanging on to it, keeping the grudges. It's all false ego stuff. And there's a whole chapter on chanting the holy name. How to chant in japa and kirtan to really receive that mercy and power which the holy name carries. I maybe have not mentioned that I do conduct holy name retreats. We have one coming up in Ekachakra Dham. Who of you has been to Ekachakra? Not so many. You haven't been to Ekachakra? You know where Ekachakra is? It's the birthplace of Nityananda. Yes, it's about 3.5 hours out of Mātā. So every year over Christmas, 24th to 28th of December, it's this year, I conduct a holy name retreat there. Very sweet and deep experience. Please come if you can put it in your schedule. We stay there for 4 nights in the ISKCON guest house. I always book the whole ISKCON property there. And it's a very deep and transformational journey, especially if you switch off your mobile phone for the whole time of the retreat. Then I promise you, you will enter a different reality. Yeah. Very powerful. Because these mobile phones are so distracting. I live without a mobile phone. I travel the whole world without a phone. It's possible. Sometimes people ask, how do you get anything done without a phone? And you know what I ask them? how do you get anything done with a phone? I wouldn't get anything done if I had a phone. I'm too busy writing books, sending them here, there. My God, I don't have time, to watch all these videos and pictures and all the pictures people collect on their phones. I don't have all this stuff, There's no need, oh my God. Yeah, so, but if you really want to get a life-transforming experience, I had Prabhupada, actually this year Chandramurti Swami is coming again. He once attended before and you already registered, coming with a whole group of disciples. So, and if he's there, it will be also humorous. But I've had Prabhupada disciples there sharing with me at the end. I realize I've done something else over these last 45 years. I haven't even started chanting the holy name. That's the realization some people get. Yeah. The chanting is a whole deep thing. We take this so lightly and cheaply, including myself. I'm living from holy language to holy language, just to polish up my chanting habits again. Yeah. Very, very sweet and deep experience. So in any case, for the Ziga book, there is a chapter on chanting and japa and kirtan. And then we have entering the Vyasashram. This is the handbook for matchmaking. How to see that a man and a woman are compatible. There's a whole list of over 200 topics and questions which they should discuss with a cool head before they plan the engagement. Just to see, are we on the same page? Do we have similar goals and moods and tastes and character and different standards, same standards? Because see, Krishna consciousness, such a broad spectrum. You can be on the very committed and traditional side, or you can be on the liberal and casual side. So that has to match, otherwise there's frustration there. See, I travel all around the world, and in many communities like US and Australia, New Zealand, most devotees are from Indian backgrounds. And I meet so many mismatched, unhappy couples from Indian families. Yeah, because the matchmaking, people have lost that knowledge. What it takes for two people to be compatible. In former times they had that. Now they only look at caste, money, and maybe the looks, and that's it. But they don't look at all the devotional qualities. And the worst thing is that people don't give the two enough time to talk. Yes, people just meet once for 20 minutes in the temple, and then the parents find the deal. And now the divorce rate in India is going up. I meet, and so many times I meet people who are divorced after 3 months of marriage. 3 months, 6 months. Yes, it's happening quite commonly. Why? Because then they had some time to talk about things, and then they realized this is not going to work. Yes, we should talk before, with a cool head in the presence of a parent. No boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. No, we meet, we sit down, in a closed room, and we talk, just to see, does this really have some future here? So I'm serving in the West sometimes as a matchmaker, just because people come to me and ask me to help them. And I use this system. Oh, I'm very strict. I don't allow them to go for walks or nothing. Meeting in a room, closed doors. Nobody should know in the community, completely confidential. I'm describing it all in here. So this is a book for unmarried devotees who want to get married, and for the parents. They should read this so they can really help their children to settle in harmonious and compatible marriages. Otherwise, if we don't fine-tune our matchmaking, then we go to the other extreme. We want the love marriage, which I like to call lust marriage. That's what it is. Not so romantic anymore. It is, but that experience we have in the West, lust marriage is not the solution. That makes it worse, even higher divorce rate. Because last marriage, two people meet, fall in lust, pink glasses. That's why I made the book pink. Because with the rosy glasses, you see everything rosy, and after 2 years, the rosy glasses wear off, and then you wake up to reality. Oh, why did I marry this person? No need. We have to fine-tune our matchmaking. And then we have family life as an ashram, secrets of success, how to create the culture of bhakti in our home. Many married devotees' home life, not a suitable place for cultivating bhakti. That's why we can't call it an ashram. Ashram is a place for cultivating bhakti. So we need some training in this. We have to change our lifestyle, our habits, so many things. So this is like a handbook for successful Krishna conscious married life. And there's a whole chapter on physical intimacy, how to live this principle of no illicit sex life in marriage. There's a bit of confusion over this. People are at a loss how to make things work. Nobody talks about it. So I did a bit of research. I came across interesting episodes with Prabhupada, where he says things which not many people have heard, and that adds a whole different perspective to the topic. So I highly recommend it. Also important for people to give guidance. And last but not least, the Vanapasashram, meeting death with joy. There's a whole chapter on death. What happens at that moment, how to prepare, how to support others on this final journey. I accompanied quite a few personalities on this last journey, the last 2 weeks. My own parents, I managed to capture the moment where I had to park all my traveling, preaching, flew back to Germany. I'm from Germany originally. And I kept them at home, helped them to focus and let go and move out. Actually, my father, he was a great fan of Kerala. He came every year for the last 15 years, he came to South India. And just 1 hour before he left, he talked about Kerala, how nice it is there. So I'm pretty sure he's somewhere here now. He took birth here in a Devakī family and continues his journey here. So that was one reason why I thought at least once in my life I have to come to Kerala to see why he liked it here so much. And I can understand why he liked it here so much. So my parents had a glorious departure, even though they were not chanting Hare Krishna every day. But we need good association all our life, and especially these last 2 weeks. Oh my God, And Vanapasashram is that phase in life when the kids are grown up, more or less. Then the parents are meant to move on to the next phase in life. Nobody even talks about Vanapasashram, even though the Shastra, Bhagavatam is full of clear statements. But we just read over them, we don't even realize, hey, that's for me, I'm meant to be a Vanapasta now. That's why we need some complementary literature, showing us how to apply what Prabhupada says. So it's very practical, and it's an exciting phase in life when we can finally do all these things which we couldn't do when the kids were small, So if any of you would like to get some books, the last 4 books are 350 rupees each. The first 2 are 300 each. Many people already got the whole set. that comes to 2,000 rupees. You can pay cash or with QR code. So now, as you see, we only have Krishna books here, you know, we don't even have any books. So what we do is we take orders. I have already 120 books in orders, which I have to send to Andrew. Yeah. So, if you want to get some books, you put your name on the list, your phone number, we tick which books you want. If you trust me, and I hope you do, you pay up front, and then in 2, maximum 3 weeks, you will get your books. That's the system we do. Yeah. So I'm only sending books which are ordered and paid for. So you should not think, oh yeah, books are coming, I'll get them later. No. I only send exactly those books which you want to get. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm really going to go over time. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So if you want some books, please come now before you take prasadam. Yeah, just in case I may not stay until everybody has finished eating or something. So yeah, please come up right now, and then we can work it out.